The forest outside Blackmane Pack was still, save for the wind whistling through the pines. Inside the Alpha's private quarters, Aria sat on the edge of the bed, her cheeks still flushed, fingers trembling as she gathered the sheet around her. Her lips tingled from his kiss, the scent of pine and storm still lingering on her skin. That meant something, didn't it? She asked softly, voice barely above a whisper. Alpha Kale stood across the room, pulling his shirt over his head with mechanical precision. His back was to her, muscles tensing with every breath. She waited, and then he said it, flatly, cruelly. It meant nothing, Aria. Her mouth parted. What? Kale turned, face blank. You're an Omega, a pretty one, sure. But that's all this ever was, a curiosity, a distraction. Her hands clenched the bedsheet. You told me you wanted forever. You said I was your mate. He laughed. I said what I had to. You're naive to think anyone would accept an Omega as Luna. She stood, the sheet falling away, forgotten. But you marked me, and I'll reject that mark officially tomorrow. His eyes finally flicked to her, cold and dismissive. Clean yourself up before anyone sees you leaving my room. Aria didn't cry not until the door clicked shut behind him, and even then the tears came silent and sharp, like knives cutting down her cheeks. She stood there in the dim room, the weight of betrayal heavier than any chain. The only man she'd ever loved had used her, then cast her aside like garbage. She left the pack that night, barefoot, wearing only a borrowed hoodie and shame. The first day, Aria ran until her feet bled. By the second day, she'd discarded her phone, knowing the pack could trace it. She crossed into human towns, never lingering too long. Her wolf, usually quiet, was curled deep inside her, wounded, silent. By the third night, she found herself hiding beneath a broken-down barn, eating stolen crackers and praying Kale wouldn't send trackers after her. But of course, he would. He couldn't risk anyone finding out what he'd done, that he'd bedded an Omega, and possibly left her pregnant. She pressed a hand to her abdomen. Nothing yet, just nausea and dread. A week passed. Then too, she avoided wolf territory entirely, cutting through human spaces and deeper wilderness. She swam across rivers, slept in abandoned cabins, and kept to the shadows. But her body betrayed her. On the 22nd morning, she vomited behind a gas station. And as she wiped her mouth, heart pounding, she whispered, "No." Her hand trembled as she bought a test paid in crumpled bills and avoided the cashier's gaze in the dirty restroom. Aria sat on the toilet, staring at the stick. 2 lines. 2. She slid to the floor, breath catching. Her wolf stirred for the first time in weeks, not with fear, but fierce protectiveness. "You have me," the wolf whispered. Aria shook her head. "I can't have a baby, not his." But fate didn't care what she wanted. Far across the continent, under a sky tinged crimson with the rising blood moon, the high seer of the Crescent Witches convulsed mid-ritual. She collapsed onto the stone floor of the temple, her hands still glowing with silver fire. Priestesses rushed to her side. "Grandmother, elder, what did you see?" The old witch's voice was raw. A child, she clawed at her own face, eyes wide and unseeing, born of betrayal, bound by curse, the end and beginning of all bloodlines. A priestess stepped back in fear. The prophecy, no elder's body trembled. Something worse, something that slipped through the cracks of the old laws. A vision hovered in the air above them, child glowing gold, surrounded by ash and broken moonlight, and behind him, the silhouette of a woman with wild eyes, and a man with a shadowed face. One priestess whispered, "Should we find the child?" Eel's head whipped toward her, teeth bared. "No, the curse will find him." Aria's belly wasn't showing, but the weight was already there. Emotionally, spiritually, she had nightmares, now burning woods, crying infants, blood on her hands. Her wolf tried to soothe her, but it was always the same ending. She was running, and something was chasing her. Someone, 3 weeks after fleeing Blackmane, she found temporary shelter in a rundown motel by a forgotten highway. She used a fake name, walked with a hoodie pulled low. Each time someone lingered too long near her door, she jumped Dot every night. She checked the test again, as if it might magically change. She hadn't shifted since she ran. Something told her it would harm the baby. She kept to herself, except when she visited the old pharmacist in Towner, which hiding in plain sight. The woman, named Mara, gave her prenatal herbs with shaking hands. "This child," Mara murmured once, not meeting Aria's gaze. "He stirs." Magic not felt in centuries. Aria gripped the counter. "What does that mean?" "I don't know, and I don't want to." Mara shoved a pouch into her hand. "Leave this town before the blood moon peaks. But I don't help cursed blood. I only delay it." Aria walked out of the pharmacy into the night, breath visible in the cold air. For a moment, she thought she saw eyes glowing in the darkness across the street. Watching the rogues came at dawn. 3 of them, wild, unhinged. They didn't shift fully, just let their claws and teeth stretch enough to look monstrous. Aria heard the growls a second too late. She bolted from her motel room, clutching the herbal pouch, barefoot again. They chased her into the woods behind. The motel, teeth snapping, laughing cruelly. "She's pregnant." She slowed down. "I smell wolfspawn." Alpha Kale's little mistake. Her breath was ragged. Branches tore at her skin. Her legs burned. "Keep going. Don't stop." She was cornered near a riverbank. One of the rogues shifted partially grey fur, yellow teeth, and lunged before he reached her. A blur of black intercepted him mid-dash. Air. Flesh met fang. The rogue hit the ground, howling in pain. A massive black wolf stood over him, taller than any normal werewolf. His eyes are deep, soulless silver. The second rogue turned to flee. Too late. The black wolf caught him with a single swipe. Blood sprayed. The third rogue hesitated, then dropped to his knees. "Alpha Thorne, I didn't know." The wolf snarled, shifted. Standing bare in the golden morning light. Alpha Thorne of the Duskfall pack was all cold menace. Unmarked skin, broad shoulders, hair dark as a raven's wing. "Then now you do." With a flick of his wrist, he snapped the groveling rogue's neck. Aria stared, chest heaving. You killed them." "You're welcome," Thorne said flatly. She blinked, shocked. "Who are you?" His eyes met hers, unapologetic, unreadable. "Alpha Thorne." He studied her a moment. Pregnant, rogue-scented, poorly disguised. He sniffed. "Formerly Blackmane." She flinched. "Lucky I found you," he said, then turned his back and began to walk. She hesitated. "Wait, where are you going?" He glanced back. "You've got 5 seconds to follow me before I decide it's not worth the trouble." Aria hesitated, then followed him into the woods. Her heart pounded not from fear of the rogues any more, but from the quiet danger walking ahead of her. The Duskfall pack's territory sprawled across mist-covered woods and mountains that hadn't seen sunlight in days. Aria followed Thorne in silence, her heart pounding with every step. He didn't look back once. She finally broke the silence. "Why did you help me?" "I don't like rogues sniffing around my borders," Thorne replied, voice as frigid as the mountain air. "I kill pests, that's all." Her lips parted, but she didn't argue. They walked until a looming mansion appeared between trees, stone, shadowed, and surrounded by high fences of silver-spiked iron. Thorne unlocked the gate with a silent key. The scent of pack wolves, dozens of them, rushed at her senses. But none came to greet them. "I'll give you one night," Thorne said, not looking at her as they stepped inside. "After that, you move on." She nodded numbly. "Thank you. You're not welcome. You're tolerated." They passed through dark hallways, lit only by dim lanterns. The pack house was vast, but eerily quiet. Thorne paused at a heavy oak door. "You'll sleep here. Don't wander. Don't talk to anyone. And don't shift." "I haven't shifted since." Her voice trailed off. "Since the bastard marked you and threw you away." Thorne's voice sharpened, but there was no sympathy, just bitter understanding. "Then you're more pathetic than I thought." She flinched, but didn't defend herself. He opened the door and turned away. "Rest. You'll leave at dawn." Aria stepped inside and shut the door quietly behind her. Her hand moved to her belly. "We're safe for one night." Morning never came properly in duskfall. The fog never lifted. Aria stepped out of the guest room to find a woman already waiting for her at all. Lean wolf with dark braids and eyes like flint. "I'm Rena," she said shortly. "Beta, female. I bring food, not friendship." Aria nodded. Rena handed her a tray of eggs, toast, and herbs. "Alpha says you're gone by noon." Aria hesitated. "Can I speak to him?" Rena snorted. "Most pack members go weeks without seeing him twice. What makes you special?" She started to turn, but paused. "He saved you. That's rare." Aria swallowed her pride. "Thank you." Rena left without responding. Aria ate in silence, staring at the windowless wall, wondering what kind of alpha ruled through shadows and distance. Hours passed. Noon came. No one came for her. By evening, Aria was still there. No one told her to leave. She debated sneaking out until she heard the growl, deep, dominant, from below the floor. A few seconds later, Thorne himself knocked. Once, she opened the door slowly. He was dressed in black, coat wet with mist, expression unreadable. "I thought I was leaving. I changed my mind." Aria blinked. "Why?" "I don't answer to you." He walked in, uninvited, scanning the room. "You're pregnant," showing signs of magical interference. "And rogues tracked you to Isley. Either you're cursed or stupid. I haven't decided yet." Her lips trembled. "If I'm cursed, why let me stay?" Thorne's silver gaze bored into her. "Because you're more dangerous outside this house than inside it." The duskfall pack house was quiet, but never peaceful. That night, Aria heard whispering, not voices, whispers through the walls, in the pipes, beneath the floors. She got up, walked the halls barefoot. The lights flickered. No wolves in sight. She reached a large portrait in the main hall, an ancient alpha with silver eyes. The resemblance to Thorne was uncanny. "Why are you staring at ghosts?" Aria spun. Thorne leaned against a column, arms folded. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Sleep anyway." His voice was flat. "You keep your wolves like prisoners," she said, before she could stop herself. "No laughter, no children, no He stepped forward. This is not your home. I know. He narrowed his eyes. What do you hear? The walls. Aria paused. They whisper. Thorne's expression changed, just slightly. They always have, he said finally. This house remembers every sin committed in it, including mine. Then he left, without another word. By morning, Thorne summoned Aria to the library, to her surprise. Another figure was waiting, a woman cloaked in faded gold, eyes blind, fingers ink-stained. Her name was Elder Nera, the pack's seer. She will look into the child, Thorne said simply. Sit. Aria obeyed, heart thundering. Is she a witch? She's something older, Thorne said. Nera approached, touching Aria's stomach. Lightly, her fingers twitched. Then she jerked back violently. You carry the vessel, Nera rasped. The child's soul is too bright, too old, too hungry. Aria went cold. What does that mean? Nera turned to Thorne. This pup is born under broken prophecy. It is bound to consume its protector. If you keep it near, your death is inevitable. Thorne said nothing. You must kill it, Nera hissed. No, Aria stood. I won't. Then the child will kill him instead, Nera snapped. One of you must die. There is no third path. Thorne dismissed the seer with a nod. The moment she left, he looked at Aria. She expected rage. Instead, his voice was calm. To calm. If what she says is true, I should kill you now. Her breath caught. But I won't, he added. Yet, the rumors spread faster than wildfire. An Omega from Blackmane is in the house. She's carrying Kale's child. She's cursed. She seduced Thorne. That's why he won't throw her out. Aria felt the stares, the mutters. She kept to herself, but it didn't help. Even Renna's tone had changed. You're disrupting the balance. Thorne's wolves were content in silence. Now they're uneasy. I didn't ask to stay, but you haven't left either. Later that day, Thorne summoned the inner council. A round table, 6 wolves, all older, all fierce. Renna sat to his right. We need to discuss the Omega. One grizzled male named Bram said, she's a threat. Another growled. Rogues. Want her. Her unborn reeks of witch magic. She's just a girl, Renna offered softly, scared, alone. Thorne stayed silent as the room descended into argument. Finally, he stood. Silence. The room obeyed. I don't trust her. I don't like her. But she stays because we don't know what's growing inside her. And I don't make decisions based on fear. And if she dooms us? Bram challenged. Thorne's voice was ice. Then I'll kill her with my own hands. Unshaken, he left the room. But Renna noticed his hands clenched tighter than usual. That night, Aria sat in her room, staring at her hands, unaware that somewhere in the woods, a shadowy figure lit a flare signaling her location, and the blood moon began to rise again. Thorne stood alone on the balcony outside the war room, arms folded behind his back, eyes scanning the mist-laced trees. Problem? Renna asked as she joined him. She's a contradiction, Thorne muttered. She walks like prey but doesn't beg. She's terrified and yet won't stop challenging me. She's carrying a cursed child, Renna said carefully. Wouldn't you be a little tense? He ignored that. She's bonded. Renna blinked. What? Thorne's voice lowered. There's a trace. Barely visible, but it's there. A mating mark. From Kale. Thorne didn't answer, but the shadows under his eyes deepened. Renna leaned against the railing. Why not throw her out if she unsettles you so much? He looked at her sharply. You saw the way those rogues tracked her, like they were summoned. If she leaves this house, she becomes a beacon to every dark creature in the region. And inside, I can watch her. He didn't admit that he already was. Every night, he found himself standing outside her door, listening. Just listening. It was easier to keep enemies close, at least. That's what he told himself. Aria stood in front of the small mirror in her room, tracing the faint crescent-shaped scar just above her heart. The mark had faded after Kale's rejection, but sometimes, especially at night, it tingled. A phantom itch. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find Thorne. He didn't speak. His eyes dropped immediately to the faint mark on her skin. Her hand flew to cover it. He raised an eyebrow. Still bonded? No, he rejected me. Then why hasn't it faded completely? I don't know, she snapped. Ask the moon. Goddess, or maybe it's just like everything else in my life, broken but not gone. His gaze lingered on the mark for a moment longer than necessary. I need you to come to the witch archives, he said finally. Why? We need to understand what's inside you, or what's coming out of you. She followed him without further complaint. Though her pulse wouldn't stop racing, the archives were in the lower floors of the packhouse beneath layers of protected stone and cold magic. Thorne unlocked the doors himself. Inside, Elder Nera waited, candles flickering around her. I brought her, Thorne said simply. Nera gestured for Aria to sit, then turned Thorne. You may want to stay. You'll want to see this. What are we doing? Aria asked. Opening the bond, Nera whispered, and revealing what the other side wants. Before Aria could protest, Nera placed 2 fingers on her belly. A flash of golden light burst through the room. Thorne stepped forward instinctively, but it was too late for a heartbeat. All 3 of them saw it. A pair of golden eyes, wide and knowing, looking up at them through the haze of womb and magic. The child was awake. That night, Aria dreamed she stood in the middle of a burning forest. Trees crackled with red fire. Ash clung to her skin like a second layer. She turned on. There was her child. A boy, maybe 5 years old. Eyes glowing like molten gold. He held a dagger in one hand, blood on the blade. She fell to her knees. Kale, she whispered. The child tilted his head. They want to kill me, Mama. No, no, baby, I won't. Let them. Will you stop them? He asked. Even him, behind the boy, Thorne stood, his throat torn, eyes lifeless. His body slumped against a tree. Aria screamed. She woke, gasping, drenched in sweat. The mark over her heart throbbed. The air in the room felt heavy, charged. Then she realized her room door was open. Thorne stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. You were screaming. She sat up, blinking fast. I didn't mean to wake anyone. You didn't. I was already awake. A lie. His voice was too rough, too low. He stepped inside, looking at her sharply. What did you see? Nothing. Don't lie to me. I saw him, she admitted softly. The baby. He was holding a weapon, covered in blood. Thorne's jaw clenched. Was I dead? He asked. She looked away. Right, he said, and left. The next day, Aria walked the outer courtyard, hoping. For air, Renna found her near the old stone well. You look like you lost a war. Aria gave a tired smile. I did, just a while ago. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of birds the only peace. Rena finally asked, "What did Kale promise you?" Aria hesitated. Then he told me I was the one, that our bond was sacred, that he'd marked me under the stars and make me Luna in secret. We'd wait until the pack accepted it, and then he took me to the edge of the northern ridge, said we'd claim it as ours someday, said he'd build me a cottage with a view. She broke off, and after he got what he wanted, Aria's face tightened. He left the bed before I stopped blushing, pulled on his pants and said, "This meant nothing, Aria." I was still catching my breath. Rena was quiet. I ran, Aria finished, and I've been running since. Rena finally said, "I've known Thorne 10 years. He doesn't speak of women, doesn't touch women, but he watches you like a man who sees something he shouldn't want." Aria shook her head. "He doesn't want anything from me. Then why hasn't he told you to leave?" They both knew the answer. It happened at midnight. The skies turned red with the blood eclipser, rare lunar phenomenon that bathed the packlands in a deep, unnatural Aria lay curled in bed, one hand on her belly, when the pain began, sharp, twisting, like her insides were shifting. She cried, out and again. The door burst open. Thorne was already halfway into the room before she could sit up. "What is it?" "The baby. Something's wrong." Her back arched off the bed, eyes going wide, and then a pulse of golden light blasted from her body, knocking books from the shelves and shaking the windows. Thorne rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders. "What's happening?" She gasped. "He's awake. He's aware, Kale." Thorne asked quietly, using the name she'd whispered weeks ago. Aria nodded through tears. "I don't think he likes the moon." Thorne looked outside where the blood eclipse hung. Low and still. He didn't flinch, didn't run. Instead, he knelt beside her, his voice low. "If this child is going to burn my pack to the ground, I need to know everything, Aria." She turned to him, eyes wild. "Then don't treat me like I'm the match." He didn't respond, but he didn't leave either. The air in Duskfall's library was always cold, as though knowledge had chilled the walls with its burden. Aria stood between two shelves, her fingers tracing the spines of ancient books many older than most packs. She was alone. Thorne had given her limited access, perhaps hoping she'd find answers before the pack demanded hers. She didn't expect much. Then she pulled out a leather-bound tome that shivered in her hand. Bloodlines of the Broken Moon. Opening it, she scanned page after page until one illustration made her freeze. A child bathed in gold light, standing amid corpses, a dark crescent over one eye. The cursed-born dot, also called the Hollow Alpha, feared, hunted, rarely survived infancy, power, enough to wake the old magic, soul older than its flesh, blood that remembers war, a name, forbidden. The script changed. Older ink bleeding across the parchment. Seraphiel. The name hummed in her chest like a heartbeat. "Seraphil," she whispered. The flame in the candle beside her flickered wildly, extinguishing itself with a hiss, and behind her she heard slow, deliberate footsteps. Thorne's voice was quiet. "What did you just say?" She turned, clutching the book. "I found a name for him. It came from this." He reached forward and pulled the book from her hands, eyes scanning the pages. The moment he saw it, he went still. "Seraphil," he said, "not like a name, but like a curse. You know it." He closed the book slowly. "I've heard it once. The witches refuse to speak it aloud. It's the name of a soul that doesn't die when its body does. A soul that returns again and again, growing stronger with each life. Aria's skin prickled. You think he's that? Thorne didn't answer right away. Then he looked at her. I think you're not carrying a child, you're carrying a weapon. The witches arrived by dusk, not the crescent coven to, proud. Too distant, but a trio of wild-blooded witches from the Hollow Ridge. All women, all cloaked in layered robes that shifted like smoke. Thorne met them outside the gates. You know the name, he asked. The oldest witch, whose face was hidden behind strands of willow bark, nodded. We felt it the moment she spoke it. Aria watched from the window as the witches entered, their presence pressing on her like a storm cloud. One of them glanced up and locked eyes with her through the glass. She's the vessel, the second witch whispered. The Seraphil's soul clings to her because it remembers. She once protected it, maybe in another life. She doesn't even know what that means, Thorne said. The third witch, youngest but sharpest, stepped forward. Then she must learn, or we will bind the child before he breathes his first air. Aria pushed into the room. You'll do no such thing. The youngest witch smiled at her, cold and knowing. Do you know what you carry? Aria stood her ground. He's mine, and his name is Kale. The oldest witch finally spoke. Seraphil has had many names, but every version ends the same fire, death, and rebirth. You can't stop that, said the middle witch. You can only delay it. Then delay it, Thorne growled. Cast a sanctuary over these lands. Bind whatever power lingers, so it doesn't draw more monsters here. The witches conferred in silence. Then the eldest nodded. We will cast a sanctuary, but it must be paid for. Thorne's jaw tensed. What's the price? The youngest witch turned to Aria. Her blood, her vow, and your protection. For as long as she breathes. Thorne did not flinch. I'll pay it. The ritual began. Under the twisted silver tree in the center of the duskfall courtyard, Renna, Bram, and half the council stood at the edges, watching with visible unease. Thorne never performed magic inside the territory, and now he was helping witches draw ancient runes into his soil. Why are you doing this? Bram whispered beside Renna. To keep worse things from getting in, she replied. Thorne stood between Aria and the witches, watching her closely. She was pale but didn't tremble, not once. I don't want your protection, she told him quietly. He didn't even blink. Doesn't matter. When the blood offering began, the witches carved a line across Aria's palm. She didn't cry out, just winced, eyes locked on the baby in her mind. The witches chanted, voices rising with the wind. A circle of silver fire ignited around the pack house, sealing the spell. At its core, Aria stood like a match waiting to be struck. The wind died. Suddenly, the witches stopped chanting. It was done. Thorne turned to Bram. No one touches her. From now on, she's under alpha protection, even if the child is what they say. Thorne's voice dropped, especially then. Despite the sanctuary, tension boiled over by the next day. Bram called for a full council vote. They met in the war hall, Thorne at the head, Renna beside him, and Aria standing silently near the door. Not allowed to speak. The witch's presence alone proves she's dangerous, Bram said. And the child Seraphil, his name is Kale. Aria snapped. Bram ignored her. He may be the death of us all. I move that we exile her now, before the next moon. Murmurs followed. Thorne sat forward. And if she dies in exile, better one Omega than a whole pack, Bram said. And when her death draws whatever's watching her from afar, Thorne stood. We're not sending a signal to every rogue, vampire, and power-hungry lunatic that we can't even protect one terrified girl. She's not a girl, Bram growled. She's a ticking clock. Rena stood abruptly. She's a mother. And she hasn't harmed anyone. The vote was called. 3 voted exile. 2 voted sanctuary. 1 abstained. Thorne didn't vote. As Alpha, he didn't have to. But as they looked to him for the final say, he stepped forward. Enough. He looked at Aria, at the mark above her heart, then at the rest of the room. She stays. She is pack-bound until I say otherwise. And just like that, the matter was closed. Bram rose in protest. She's not even your mate. No, Thorne said coldly, but I am the Alpha. And I said she stays. They didn't speak for hours after the vote. Aria sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring out over the trees. Thorne finally joined her, silent as a shadow. She didn't look at him. You didn't have to do that. You're right, he said. I didn't. Then why? Because if I let them decide who deserves protection, Thorne said, voice low, it won't end with you. Aria turned to face him. You hate me? No. I fear what you carry. There's a difference. Then why not kill me? He held her gaze. Because if I do, and I'm wrong, then I become the monster. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, complicated, she whispered. No one's ever chosen me before. Thorne didn't answer right away. Then he said, quietly, I didn't choose you. I chose what's right. She nodded slowly. Isn't it the same thing? He didn't respond, but he didn't walk away either. A week passed. No visions. Number attacks. No glowing eyes or blood-red moons. For once, Aria could breathe. She spent her mornings walking the duskfall, ground still watched by wary pack members, but no longer whispered about in hushed tones. Rena began joining her on those walks, sometimes silent, sometimes sharing stories about her warrior days. Aria appreciated the quiet, needed it, but the calm didn't feel like peace. It felt like waiting for the sky to break open. Inside the pack house, Thorne was more distant than ever. He no longer summoned her to meetings, didn't ask questions, didn't knock on her door during the nightmares. It should have been a relief. It wasn't at night. She sat by her window and wondered if he was somewhere else in the house sitting by his own, wondering the same. She told herself she was imagining it, that they'd gone back to being strangers. But when she passed him in the hall, his eyes always found her, and they lingered. Thorne had never been a man who let his gaze wander. He commanded, he enforced, he protected, but he did not watch, until now. It was Aria's laugh that undid him, not frequent and never careless, but when it came brief, broken, and real, it cracked something in him. He saw her on the training field with Rena. One afternoon, she wasn't fighting, just watching. She stood with one hand resting on her belly, head tilted to the sky, eyes closed like she was soaking in the sun. Thorne watched from the tower window far above, arms crossed. She's not what I expected, Rena said, suddenly beside him. He didn't look at her. You were eavesdropping. I live here. Rena leaned against the railing. You used to pace this balcony like a caged wolf. Now you just loiter. She's unpredictable, he said. She's scared, Rena corrected. Thorne stayed quiet for a long moment. The pack needs her to be temporary. So do I, Rena tilted her head. And yet you look at her like she's permanent. He turned away, didn't deny it. The witches returned with no warning, appearing in the northern woods, like they'd stepped out of smoke. Elder Nera felt them arrive and summoned Aria alone. To the archive, no guards, the seer insisted, no alpha. Aria didn't argue. She met the witches beneath the old silver tree. The youngest witch stepped forward. You've named the child. You've fed him magic. Now we can speak plainly. About what? His mate, the middle witch said. Aria blinked. He's not even born. Seraphil always finds a mate, the eldest whispered, and always kills her. Aria's heart dropped. What? It's part of the curse, the younger explained. His soul is too large to share, too old to bind, but it will try. He'll love fiercely, obsessively, and when it consumes him, he'll destroy her. Aria finished. The witches nodded. You must teach him not to love, the elder warned, or you will lose him to the very thing that makes him alive. Aria's voice broke. He's a baby. Yes, the witch said gently, but he won't stay that way. They left with no farewell. Aria stayed under the silver tree, tears falling silently onto the earth, and far off in the house. Thorne stiffened, feeling something echo inside him that wasn't his. The attack came just before dawn. The sanctuary flickered just for a breath, but it was enough. 2 rogues breached the outer perimeter and sprinted through the fog like wolves with no flesh, feral foam at their lips, eyes white. Thorne was in the courtyard within seconds. Renna and Bram followed. Where is she? Thorne barked. Still in her room, Renna said. Then keep them away. But the rogues didn't go for the guards. They moved with purpose. For Aria's scent, Thorne shifted mid-run, black fur erupting over his body as he tore across the yard and smashed through the east corridor wall. The first rogue reached Aria's door just as she opened it. Awakened by the wards screaming in her blood, she screamed, and then the rogue was gone. Thorne's massive wolf form had slammed into it with crushing force, his jaws locked around its throat. The second rogue lunged from behind. Aria tried to move. Too slow, the claws caught her side deep. She fell, blood dot pain, and then warmth is warmth. Thorne stood over her. Blood spattered across his face, eyes burning. Don't move, he growled, voice rough with fury. She reached for her stomach. The baby. He looked down, knelt, touched her side gently, impossibly gently. We'll get Elder Nera, he said. Just hold on. She passed out to the feel of his hand on hers. When Aria woke, it was night. The pain was dull now. Bandaged. Herbs clung to her skin, and someone was holding her hand. She looked up and Thorne was there, seated beside her bed, expression unreadable but undeniably present. You didn't leave, she whispered. You almost died. You look worse. He glanced at the blood on his shirt. It's not mine. She studied him. You were afraid. He said nothing. Thorne. Finally, he met her gaze. I've faced entire armies. I've lost family. I've seen witches burn, and none of it felt like this. She stared at him. This, he gestured to her wound, to her hand still in his. This made me feel. I don't like it. Then let go. I can't, he said softly. She didn't ask what he meant, and he didn't explain. They stayed that way until dawn, her crying softly. Him holding her through it like he wasn't already breaking inside. The morning after the attack, Aria lay still in her bed, clutching her side. The pain throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Thorne hadn't left the room. Not once. He sat silently in the corner, sharpening a blade against a whetstone knot that he needed the weapon. Aria suspected it was more about control than utility. "I'm fine," she said softly. "I know," he replied, still sharpening. "You don't need to stay." His eyes flicked to hers. "I'm aware." She tried to smile. "So why are you here?" Thorne set the blade down. "Because the last time I turned my back, you almost died." Before she could respond, her hand flew to her stomach. The baby had moved. She gasped. "What is it?" Thorne was instantly at her side, voice tense. "He moved," she whispered. "Just now." Thorne's brows drew together. "Are you sure?" She reached for his hand, hesitated, then guided it to her stomach. They both went still, a soft thump, then another, then a pulse. His eyes widened slightly. The pup moved again, stronger this time only. When Thorne touched her, he responds to you, Aria breathed. Thorne pulled his hand back, like he'd touched fire. "I shouldn't be connected to him." "Maybe you already are." Thorne turned away, his voice cold again. "I protect what's mine. That doesn't make me his father." But Aria didn't miss the way his hand hovered over his chest, like something inside him disagreed. 2 days later, Aria returned to the archives against Nera's warnings. Renna came with her, silent but alert, guarding the doors as Aria scanned the old tomes. Something inside her was urging her forward. A call that the answer came from the book she'd seen once before, Bloodlines of the Broken Moon. But this time, a second section revealed itself. Only now that her blood had been spilled within the sanctuary, she flipped through pages until one stopped. Her cold, a prophecy written in red ink, sealed under dried blood, born of betrayal. Carried in mercy, the pup of ends shall awaken when the tethered soul breathes life into fire. One shall love it. One shall destroy it. One shall try to do both and be undone. Aria read it again and again. "Pup of Ents," she whispered. "Saprophil." She closed the book, heart thundering. Thorne would want to know. But what would he do? That night, her old mating mark burned, violent, sharp dot. She cried out in her room. Clutching her chest, Thorne appeared in her doorway, a heartbeat later, hair tousled, shirt half-buttoned. "What is it?" She pointed to the mark on her skin. It had darkened again, glowing faint silver, the shape distorted, like it wasn't finished forming. "I thought it was gone," she whispered. "After Kale rejected me," he knelt beside her, examining the mark. "This isn't Kale's." She blinked. "What?" "I've seen blackmane markings. They curve differently." This, his fingers hovered over the edge of the mark, trembling slightly. "This is something else." The skin beneath his hand glowed brighter, and she felt it not Kale's presence, Thorne's. Her breath hitched. "You marked me, no." His voice was hoarse. "I couldn't have." "Then why does it react to you?" Thorne stood, backing away like her skin was poison. "I didn't do this." "But it's you," Aria said, standing now, her voice shaking. "It's your mark." "No," he said, firmer. "No, I don't, mate. I don't love. I don't bond. But your soul does." He turned away and didn't look back. Aria found Nera the next morning. "He's my mate," she said quietly. The old seer didn't look surprised. "I knew the moment he stood over your bleeding body and called your name like it was the last word left in the world. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because truth isn't safety. It's often a weapon." Aria's eyes burned. "He won't believe it." "No," Nera agreed. Because Thorne's greatest fear isn't fate. It's losing control. But we're bonded, Aria insisted. Fate makes no guarantees of safety or love, only connection. You may love him with your entire soul, and he may never let you in. Then why bind us? Nera's smile was tired, because the gods are cruel and amused. Later that evening, Aria found him on the outer walls, staring at the stars like they'd betrayed him. She approached. Quietly, you knew, didn't you? She asked, his jaw clenched. No, you felt it. The mark, the tether. I felt a mistake, Thorne said flatly. Her chest cracked open. Is that what I am to you? You're a complication, a risk. And what about the pup? She whispered. He moves when you're near. He calms when you speak. Thorne didn't look at her. You can deny me, she said, but don't deny him. I didn't ask for any of this, he snapped suddenly, finally turning. I built this pack on blood and rules. I protected it with silence. And now you with your cursed child and broken promises, you want me to believe we're fated. Yes, she said, because we are. I don't want you, he shouted. She flinched. Silence, then softly, like something in her cracked, she said, but I want you. Thorne stared at her, as if seeing something he didn't want to believe. He didn't reach for her, didn't hold her, didn't say another word. He turned and walked into the shadows, leaving her on the wall beneath the indifferent moon. The scent of foreign wolves hit Duskfall's border before the first howl. Thorne stood on the battlement wall, arms folded, the wind teasing his cloak. Below, Bram paced like a caged beast. They're from Iron Hollow, Bram said, and not here to negotiate. Thorne nodded once. Renna joined them, a spyglass in hand. 7 wolves, heavily armored, their alphas with them. Thorne's lips thinned. Yarrick. Didn't he lose his mate in the last rogue war? Renna asked. He blames witchcraft, Thorne said coldly, and by extension, anything tied to it, like a cursed child. Bram stepped forward. Let me handle this, Alpha. I'll offer them a trade, a warning, something. No, you'd go to war for her. Thorne turned slowly. I've already gone to war. Aria stood in the shadows behind them, silent until now. He's coming for me, isn't he? Yes, Thorne said, not sugarcoating it, and you'll protect me. I said you were under my shield. She took a step closer. But will you fight your own kind for me? He held her gaze. I already am. Later that night, the council gathered again, this time with the stench of fear thick in the air. Yarrick's emissary had delivered an ultimatum. Hand over the girl and her unborn, or expect blood before the full moon. Bram stood immediately. We cannot win a war against Iron Hollow. Then we stand, Renna said. We don't fold. The child is cursed. Bram roared. We're risking annihilation over a girl Thorne won't even claim. I never asked him to. Aria's voice cut through the room like a blade. All eyes turned to her. She stepped forward, slow but unflinching. You keep calling me weak, cursed, a burden, but I bled for this pack. I survived every lie, every threat, every attempt to end me, and I'm still here. No one doubts your endurance, Bram muttered. Aria didn't stop. If you're so terrified of a child that hasn't even drawn breath, then maybe you've forgotten what being a pack means. She looked at Thorne, then turned back to the room. You want me gone? Fine. Vote. Exile me. But understand, if you turn me away, you'll be handing Iron Hollow proof that duskfall bends to fear. Silence. Then Rena said, I second her. Words. Thorne stood, his voice cold steel. There will be no vote. Bram growled, You can't ignore the council. I am the council, Thorne said. That night, Aria sat by the fire in her room, staring into the flames. Her hands rested on her belly. A knock, she didn't turn. You can come in. Thorne entered quietly. For once, no armor, just black linen. Still imposing. I owe you thanks, she said. He stood behind her. You don't owe me anything. You stood up for me. I stood up for truth. No, she turned to face him. You stood up for me. There's a difference. He didn't deny it. She rose and approached him. You still won't say it. Say what? That we're bonded. He exhaled, jaw clenching. I can't. Say it. Why? Because if I let myself believe it, I won't be able to let you go when I should. Maybe you're not supposed to, she whispered. I will lose everything. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. Then, start with this. The pup moved again, stronger, faster. Thorne's eyes closed, expression raw. He knows me. Aria leaned in, forehead against his chest. So do I. He didn't kiss her, but his arms wrapped around her like she was the last thing holding him together, and for once, he let it happen. The witches returned on the fourth night after Iron Hollow's threat. Nura greeted them, flanked by Thorne and Rena. We found an ancient rite, said the youngest witch, one that can purge the child's soul of its past names. It's dangerous, Nura warned. The storm ritual hasn't been attempted in a century. Aria stepped forward. If it can save him, I'll do it. Thorne's eyes locked on hers. No, you don't get to choose for me. You're carrying our fate. I'm carrying my son, she said, voice fierce. The witches began the preparation, immediately circles carved into stone, silver burned into the soil. The storm ritual required 3 elements: blood, lightning, and choice. At midnight, the storm rolled in. Thunder shook the trees. Rain lashed the pack house. Aria stood barefoot in the ritual ring, soaked and shivering, but resolute. You must. Speak his name, said the eldest witch, and offer the future you choose. Aria took a breath. Seraphilkale, I offer you a life of peace. I offer you a mother who will never fear you. Lightning struck the stone. The circle ignited. Thorne shouted from the edge, Aria, and then she was gone. Swallowed by the storm, Aria woke in a void. Black sky, floating embers, no ground beneath her feet, and before her the child, not a baby, a boy, golden-eyed, blood-marked, and ancient. He looked at her with fury. You would bind me, I would save you. I was born to burn the world. No, Aria said softly. You were born to change it. The boy snarled. You're not my first mother. I'll be your last. He lunged, and she didn't flinch. Instead, she opened her arms. He crashed into her claws, ready and then froze. Held, Aria whispered, You don't have to hurt to exist. He trembled, then burst into golden light. When Aria awoke, the ritual ring was scorched. Her body collapsed on the stone hand. The witches surrounded her. Nera leaned down. You survived. Aria blinked. Did it work? The youngest witch looked stunned. No. What? Nera stood, voice grave. You didn't cleanse him. The youngest added, almost breathless, You awakened him. And in the sky above, duskfall, lightning split in the shape of a wolf's eye glowing gold. The day after the storm ritual, Duskfall was eerily silent. The air buzzed with static. The sky, despite the sunlight, stayed greyish blue like dusk had settled early. Aria hadn't left her bed. Not because she was weak, because she wasn't alone in her mind. She sat at the edge of the mattress, hands over her stomach, breathing shallow, and then it happened again. A voice, "I like the dark." She flinched. Who said that? No one answered. She clutched the blankets, heart pounding. Kale, Renna. Silence, and then soft, childlike, but clear. "You called me Kale, but I remember my old names." Her body trembled. "You're not supposed to speak. You're not born yet. I am always born, always dying, always returning. But this time, you're different. Stop. You touched the storm and didn't break. That makes you mine." Tears stung her eyes. "You're mine, and I decide what you become. We'll see, Mother." She curled into herself, shaking, whispering, "Thorne, I need Thorne." Far outside her room, Thorne stood rigid in the hall, eyes narrowed. He hadn't heard the voice, but the power had returned, and it was watching. They brought in the moon oracle by force. The woman, elder and blind, travelled with a raven perched on her shoulder and a warning carved into her cheek. "I read fates, not futures," she rasped to Thorne as he escorted her into the war room. "Read his," Thorne said, nodding toward Aria. The oracle turned her clouded eyes on the pregnant Omega and shivered. "You should not have called me. We had no choice," Aria said. "Something's changing." The oracle extended her hand. Aria gave hers, trembling. Then the woman touched her belly and gasped. She staggered backward. "What did you see?" Thorne demanded. The oracle looked at him, then at Aria, and finally at Nera. "This child," she whispered. "He is neither destroyer nor savior." Renna frowned. "Then what is he?" "He is both, a blade with no handle, a god unborn." Silence crashed over the room. The oracle raised a shaking finger to Thorne. "And you are the one who tempers him." "I am not his father," Thorne said quickly. "But he has chosen you," the oracle said. "Blood means nothing to prophecy. Intent is power. And he sees your intent more clearly than your words." "I didn't ask for this," Thorne growled. "No," she agreed. "But neither did the storm, and yet it strikes." The next evening, Aria found Thorne in the war room, bent over maps and scrolls, surrounded by glowing runes and witch sigils. "Are you preparing for a siege?" she asked. He didn't look up. "If Iron Hollow returns, we'll be ready." "You're lying." Finally, his eyes met hers. "What do you think I'm doing?" She stepped forward. "You're planning to kill him?" He didn't deny it. "Say it," she hissed. "You want to end my baby." "I want to end what's inside him," Thorne said coldly. "That's not a thing. That's him. That's Kale. You don't understand what he is. I do. I'm the one who hears him at night. I'm the one who feels him twist when someone lies. I'm the one he chose. And I would die before I let you harm him." Thorne's jaw flexed. "If it's him or the world, then I choose him, every time. You're blinded by instinct." "No," she snapped. "I'm awakened by it." She turned to leave, then stopped. "If you ever lay a hand on him, Thorne, I will become the prophecy they fear, and I will destroy you." He didn't stop her, didn't follow. But when the door slammed, he let out a roar so loud it cracked a beam in the ceiling. Thorne sat in his chamber, alone, with a bottle of aged wolfsbane, whiskey half empty beside him. The door opened. Renna stepped in. uninvited. He didn't look at her. Say what you came to say. I've known you since before your first kill, she said. And I've never seen you like this. Like what? Human. He laughed bitterly. I should have killed Cale the moment he stepped into my territory. Rena walked to the edge of the room. You ever going to tell her what happened? To your first mate? His hand twitched. That's not relevant. She thinks you're cold because you're cruel. I am cruel. No, she said. You're afraid of love, of fate, of holding something you can't control. Silence. Then, softly, he said, her name was Linya. Rena froze. She was bright, too bright. She wanted children. I wanted war. She died carrying one. My child. His eyes glistened for the first time in years. I couldn't protect them. He looked down at his hands. And now fate offers me a second chance with a woman I can't deserve and a child I fear. Rena touched his shoulder, then earned them, not through power, but by being there. Aria sat by the fire again, arms wrapped around herself. A knock. This time, she didn't hesitate. Come in. Thorne entered. He stood just inside the door for a long time, as if he didn't belong. Then he said, I'm sorry. She blinked. For what? For not choosing you sooner. Her breath caught. He stepped closer. I'm afraid, but not of him, of us. I know, she whispered. I've been cold because I didn't know how to be anything else. But the night you screamed my name during the rogue attack I broke, and I haven't healed since. She stood. He reached for her face, brushing her cheek. Tell me to go, he said, voice rough, and I will. Aria didn't speak. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him. Slow, deep, real, no desperation, just need. They didn't rush. There was no power play, no struggle, only two people breaking apart to fit together. That night, for the first time, they shared a bed, not as protector and burden, not even as Alpha and Omega, but as two cursed souls, who, for one moment, found something close to peace. And somewhere deep in Aria's belly, the unborn stirred not with warning, but with warmth. He had felt it too. The full moon rose blood-red. It was called the hunter's moon for a reason. Outer patrols fell silent just past midnight. Thorne stood in the war tower, brows drawn. Rena entered, sword already strapped to her back. They're not just rogues, they're trained. How many? Too many. But they're avoiding a full breach. They want something. Aria. Thorne was already moving before she finished. He burst into Aria's room. She stood at the window, frozen, clutching her stomach. I felt them, she whispered. One of them whispered my name. Thorne grabbed her shoulders. Where? Leaving now. But the pack will survive. I need you alive. Bram arrived in the doorway, breathless. We have traitors among the outer patrols. They let the assassins through. Thorne's voice turned to ice. Who? We don't know yet, but they want Aria. Then they'll die. Outside, the howling began, not wild, not feral. Coordinated. The hunters had arrived, and Aria's baby stirred for the first time, in fear. The traitor's name came with blood. One of the gate captains, Marek, a wolf Thorne had raised from cubhood. Rena slammed him to the ground in the central courtyard. We found him trying to lower the western shield. Marek spit blood, eyes wild. You should have handed the girl over. She's death in a dress. Aria flinched. Thorne stepped forward, slow and lethal. I gave you everything, he said. And you sold us for what? Coin, promises, Marek snarled. For survival. I see Thorne whispered. He turned to Bram. Execute him, Alpha. No debates. We don't feed treason. Bram hesitated, then nodded grimly. As Marek was dragged away, Thorne turned to Aria. You stay in the crypt. The crypt, reinforced, ancient, nothing gets through it. She stared at him. You're pushing me underground like a secret. I'm keeping you alive. Aria reached for his hand. And what about you? I don't die easy. But when she kissed him, he let it linger too long, like he wasn't sure if he'd return. Aria sat in the crypt chamber, candles flickering against ancient stone. Nera kept watch beside her, while two warriors stood guard outside. But Aria felt it the moment the enchantments shattered. The child screamed inside her, not with fear, with warning. Nera stood, trembling. They've breached how? Aria gasped. They said it was sealed. The door exploded inward. Two figures stepped, dressed in obsidian leather, eyes glowing unnaturally. Nera hurled a warding stone. One hunter dodged. The other caught it mid-air and crushed it. Aria backed away. Thorne will kill you, she said, voice shaking. One of them smiled. He'll be too late. They moved fast blindingly. A cloth was thrown over her mouth. She fought, kicked, but her vision blurred. She heard Nera scream. Magic crackled. Bones snapped, and then the world tipped. Sideways, she was gone. Darkness, movement, cold wind against her face. She was being carried through the woods. Aria blinked awake, barely conscious. Her wrists were bound. Her head throbbed. Then a pulse. In her belly, the baby was awake. I'm here, he whispered in her mind. Let me help. Her eyes widened. Let you. The air around her flickered. The hunter holding her stiffened. What the? A golden light exploded from Aria's skin. She screamed, but not from pain. From release, the bindings burned away. The air thickened with unnatural heat. The hunter dropped her, screaming, arms aflame. Aria rolled, landed on all fours, breathing hard, her eyes gold. The earth cracked beneath her feet, and her voice, no longer entirely her own, boomed outward. You will not touch what is mine. The other assassin fled. Too late, lightning struck the tree beside him. He didn't rise. Aria collapsed, trembling, and the child whispered, gentle now, we are not weak. Thorne found the scorched trees first, then the smoking ground, then her collapsed. By a moss-covered boulder, unconscious, blood on her temple. He didn't hesitate. He knelt, cradled her face. Aria, Aria. Her lashes fluttered. You found me. His throat tightened. Always, she coughed weakly. I burned them, I saw. I didn't mean to. I don't care. She looked at him, then truly looked. You're scared of me now. No, he said, voice hoarse. I'm scared of losing you. Again. She touched his cheek, fingers trembling. Then don't. And in that moment, Thorne, Alpha of Duskfall, coldest warrior of the northern packs, wept. Not because she was weak, but because she wasn't. Because she had called him with power, and he had come with blood, and because he knew there would be no leaving now, not for either of them. Aria didn't sleep the night. After her rescue, neither did Thorne. She sat on the roof of the keep, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring up at a cloudless sky. The stars blinked like nervous witnesses. Thorne approached in silence, offering a flask. She didn't take it. You can't scare me off now, she said softly. He sat beside her, legs stretched out in front of him, eyes guarded. I never wanted to scare you. You did anyway. A pause then. You never stopped calling me Alpha, even after everything. It wasn't about respect, she murmured. It was about hope. He turned to her. Hope for what? That you'd fight for me. Not just protect me, but choose me. Her eyes met his. And if I did, he asked, choose you. I'd choose you back. He stilled. Then, I don't know how to be what you need. I don't need soft. I don't need sweet. I just need true. Silence stretched between them. Then Thorne stood. I've been marked before, he said. By blood, by failure, but never by something that made me want to stay. He extended a hand. Aria took it, and she knew, without words, that this time she was choosing him. They didn't rush it. They returned to her chamber slowly, silently, a storm of things unspoken between them. Aria lit the candles. Thorne closed the door. She turned. We don't have to, I do, he said. He stepped closer, brushing her hair back. This isn't a claiming, he whispered. It's a vow. His thumb traced the faint curve of her old, rejected mark. I want to rewrite what he did to you. Aria nodded once, then tilted her head. Thorne's eyes darkened. He leaned in, teeth bared not in violence, but in reverence. His fangs sank gently into her neck, and she gasped because it didn't burn like Kale's had. It glowed, warm, spreading, like starlight through her veins. When he pulled back, their bond snapped into place with a silent THUNDERCLAP, and Thorne whispered voice broken open. Mine. Aria leaned her forehead to his. Yours, she echoed, always. And somewhere in her womb the child stirred again, but this time he felt quiet, as if watching something sacred. Aria found them at dawn. Her face was pale, shaking. There's something you need to see. She guided them into the sanctuary. The old runes were already glowing, reacting to the mate bond Thorne had triggered. The moment you completed the mark, Nira explained, you unlocked the final gate. She placed both of their hands on the stone altar, and the world shifted. They fell into darkness, then light, then a future. They stood in a field of ash. Duskfall was gone, the skies red. Smoke curled from broken towers, and in the center, a boy, tall, 17, maybe 18, golden eyes, black veins, and blood on his claws. He stood over a crumpled figure. Thorne, dead, Aria screamed. The boy turned and whispered, it was always going to end this way. The vision shattered. They returned to the sanctuary, gasping. Nira didn't speak, neither did Thorne, but Aria turned to him, tears burning. I won't let it happen. I don't fear death, Thorne said. I fear living without you. And for once, Thorne didn't have a cold answer, just the warmth of her hand in his. Thorne stood alone in the armory, hands clenched. Renna entered quietly. He's just a child, she said. He's a weapon. He's yours. Thorne turned. You saw the vision. Visions aren't final, Renna replied. They're warnings. He closed his eyes. I'm not ready to die for a future I never wanted. Then live for it. Thorne stared at her, then stalked out of the room and found Aria in the garden. She was humming softly, touching the flowers that had bloomed overnight, the same ones that died every time her power flared. He stood behind her, silent. I won't raise him in fear, she said without turning. You shouldn't have to. She looked over her shoulder. Then what will we do? Raise him together, Thorne said. Prepare him, teach him choice. She smiled. That sounds dangerously like hope. I'm getting reckless, he admitted. Aria leaned into him. If we're fated to lose, let's make fate bleed. Trying, he chuckled. There she is, the mother of destruction. No, he said, kissing her crown. The woman who saved me. The blood eclipse arrived without warning. At midnight, the moon turned red. The winds howled, and Aria's water broke. Nera rushed to her side. It's too soon. Thorne was already moving, calling for Rena, Bram, healers. But Aria screamed. The walls shook. Thorne burst into the room. I'm here. I can't. Thorne, it hurts. Breathe. Just breathe. Nera pressed her hands to Aria's belly. He's trying to come early. He's trying to burn his way out. Stop. Him, Thorne roared. I can't. He's not obeying natural law anymore. Aria's body glowed gold. The mark on her neck burned like a brand. And then his voice again. Let me out. No. Aria sobbed. Not yet. Please. Not now. Thorne knelt beside her. Look. At me. Look at me, Aria. Her eyes found his. If you go, she whispered, you take me with you. I'm not going anywhere, he said. You're mine, I'm yours. And no God, no fate, no child changes that. And then the first contraction hit. It wasn't just labor. It was rebirth. The birth of something that had never belonged in this world, but now had a place. Because two broken people made room for it. And the moon above bled red dot lightning split the sky over Duskfal. Inside the healer's wing, chaos reigned. Aria's screams echoed through the stone halls, her body drenched in sweat and glowing faintly gold beneath the candlelight. Nera hovered over her, muttering ancient spells, trying to keep her from burning alive from the inside. Rena had taken over crowd control, forcing back worried wolves and panicked council members with a sword in one hand and a snarl on her lips. In the center of it all, Thorne knelt beside the birthing bed, gripping Aria's hand so tightly it turned white. You stay with me, he growled. You don't go anywhere, do you hear me? I'm not going anywhere, she gasped. But he is. And then he arrived. The moment his tiny body slid free, the torches in the room went out. The only light came from him, faint and golden. Like starlight through fog, he didn't cry. He watched, golden. Eyes blinked up at the room, ancient, knowing. Wrong. Nera took a step back. Gods help us. But Thorne didn't flinch. He picked up the child's still slick, still silent hand, held him high. I don't fear you, Thorne whispered, and I never will. The baby looked at him and smiled. They didn't hold a naming ceremony. Most of the pack wouldn't even enter the room. Bram stood just outside the healer's den, arms crossed. That thing shouldn't be alive. Thorne turned to him, slow and cold. Finish that sentence. Bram's jaw locked. He's cursed. Everyone saw it. The moon blinked when he was born. That child is my son, Thorne said. And anyone who raises a claw against him will bleed for it. Rena stepped in. He hasn't done anything yet. He didn't cry, Bram hissed. Newborns cry. That one stared, like he was waiting. Thorne walked past him and into the chamber. Aria sat in bed, holding the baby, humming gently. Her hair stuck to her neck, her eyes hollow but calm. How many came to see him? She asked. None, she nodded. They're afraid, then. Let them be. Aria looked up. That's not leadership. That's hiding. Thorne sat beside her. I don't care what they think. You will, when they turn on us. He didn't answer. But he knew she was right, and outside, wolves whispered in the shadows about omens, curses, and Alpha Thorne's growing madness. A week passed. The baby didn't sleep like others. He watched the fire. He stirred at thunder. He blinked when wolves howled, as if answering in his own way. On the 7th day, Thorne summoned the council. He placed the baby at the center of the war table. Bram reeled back. "You brought that thing here." "I brought my son, Thorne," said Heath. Looked at Aria. She nodded once. Then Thorne raised the boy high. "We name him today," he declared. "By blood and bond." Bram spat. "Name him what? Flame, death, doom." Aria stood beside Thorne. "We name him Kale." A hush fell. Thorne repeated it. Kale, son of Aria, chosen of fate, named by his mother, and his father, Aria. Added. Thorne didn't blink. He placed a hand over Kale's chest, which glowed faintly beneath the cloth. "He is ours," Thorne said, voice quiet but echoing. "And the next one who questions that won't be meeting council, they'll be meeting me." Bram didn't speak again. Neither did anyone else. And that night, Kale finally cried. The forest listened and trembled. Kale's cries shook the trees. Literally the next night, when his voice broke into the midnight air, the birds stopped flying. The wolves in the south fields fell to their knees. Renna sprinted through the trees toward the healer's wing, only to find every silver charm in the walls cracked. Nera knelt in the corner, hands over her ears. "He's dreaming," she whispered, "and the forest is answering." Inside, Aria held Kale to her chest, rocking him. "He's in pain." Thorne entered, rage buried under forced control. "Why?" "He's remembering," Aria said. Thorne frowned. "He hasn't lived, but something inside him has." Thorne came forward, placed his hand gently on Kale's head. He murmured. "You're not alone. You don't have to burn everything to be seen." Kale stopped crying. Just like that, Nera stared in awe. "Only you can reach him." Thorne looked up. "Then I'll never stop trying." And deep underground, ancient wards cracked open, drawn by Kale's power, because even the earth had begun to notice. Something had been born that did not belong. They came at dawn, not 1 or 2.50 rogues, branded, twisted, some with hollow eyes, others with cracked skin, drawn to power like moths to a flame. And Kale was burning bright. Renna stormed into the war tower. "They're not just attacking, they're searching." Thorne was already in armor. Aria met him at the top of the stairs. Kale swaddled in her arms. "Take him underground," he said. "No," Aria snapped. "You don't send away your heart in battle. He needs me." Thorne hesitated. Kale opened his eyes and glowed. Renna stepped forward. "He's calling them, isn't he?" "No," Thorne said grimly. "They've come to stop what they think he'll become." "But they're wrong," Aria added. "Are they?" Bram asked from behind. "Because I felt his cry in my marrow." Thorne stepped between Aria and the others. "He's a child," he growled, "and he's mine. So, if they want him," he drew his sword, "they'll have to go through me." Outside, the howling began. Not just wolves, not just rogues, something else. And Kale blinked slowly and smiled. Aria woke before dawn. She laid. Kale in his enchanted cradle, crafted by Nera, to dampen his energy, and stepped silently outside. Renna waited in the training yard, swords laid out, no armor. Renna asked. Aria rolled her shoulders. "Not until I've earned it." They started slow. then faster. By mid-morning, Aria's palms were blistered, her knees bruised, and her lungs on fire. But she didn't stop. Rena, panting, circled her. Why now? Because next time something comes for my son, Aria said, swinging again, I want to kill it myself. That's not very Omega of you. Then maybe I'm not just an Omega. From the balcony above, Thorne watched in silence. He said nothing, but when Bram joined him, muttering about disgraceful displays, Thorne answered with a low growl. She is my mate. And my son's mother. You speak again, and I'll knock your teeth in myself. Bram backed away, and Thorne quietly, secretly smiled, because Aria wasn't just training for war, she was becoming a storm. It happened during a patrol raid, a minor breach, they thought. But two of the rogues weren't rogues at all, they were vessels. Empty husks filled with old, cruel magic, drawn to Cale's presence like bloodhounds. Thorne arrived seconds before the second vessel breached the wall. Aria was outside the den, reaching for Cale's basket. The creature lunged. So did Thorne. He took the blow to the chest, a searing, fire-coated claw through his ribs. Blood soaked the stone. Thorne, Aria screamed. He roared, still standing. His sword cleaved the creature in half before it could reach her. Then he dropped. Hard Rena was already at his side. Pressure here. Don't let him pass out. Aria dropped to her knees, grabbing his face. Stay awake, look at me. I'm fine, he croaked. You are not fine, you're bleeding through your back. He reached up, weakly touched. Her cheek still worth it. He whispered and passed out. Thorne didn't wake for 3 days. In that time, Duskfall grew uneasy. Rumors swirled, and then the Raven Oracle returned. You want to protect them. The old witch rasped to Aria. Then prove you're worthy. Aria didn't hesitate. What do I have to do? The blood trials, do they hurt? Yes, do. I die only if you're weak. Rena tried to talk her out of it, so did Nera, but Aria walked into the forest at sunset with nothing but a blade and her will. She faced 3 trials. The trial of reflection, where she saw herself holding a burning Cale, forced to choose between saving him or killing him. The trial of pain, where she felt every scream she had buried since her rejection, her exile, and her labor. The trial of bond, where Thorne appeared, not as her mate, but as a test of loyalty. Do you still choose him, even if he cannot choose you back? She did, and when she returned, bloodied, scarred, and silent, the pack bowed, even Bram, because Omegas weren't supposed to survive the blood trials. But she had. The summons came in black flame. A scroll appeared on Cale's cradle, sealed in obsidian wax. Aria read it aloud, by decree of the ancients. Child of prophecy, Cale named and cursed, shall be presented before the witch council at the next moonrise. Aria paled. Why? To see if he is fit to live, Rena said. Grimly. Thorne, finally walking, barely snatched the scroll. They don't decide that. They do, Nera said softly. You marked him as yours. That gave him power. That also gave the world permission to judge. Thorne looked at Cale. The baby cooed at him, oblivious. He turned to Aria. We go. Together, she nodded. And for the first time in days, they all felt the world shift beneath their feet. Something old was waking, and it wanted to meet the boy who wouldn't cry. They left Duskfall under cover of fog. Thorne, Aria, Cale, Rena, Nara, and 3 trusted warriors. The path to the Vale was cursed ground. Nothing grew there. The birds didn't sing. The closer they got, the colder it became, not with a cold. spiritual cold. Kale didn't make a sound, not even when the trees bent away from his presence, not when the shadows whispered Aria's name, not when the old runes on Thorne's arm began to bleed. They camped under dead oaks. Renna whispered, "You sure we're not walking into our own execution?" Thorne replied without looking up, "If they try to take him, they won't," Aria said sharply, and she wasn't asking at the heart of the cursed vale. The witches waited hooded, faceless, ageless, and as Kale opened his eyes to meet them, the tallest witch whispered, "We've been waiting for you." The witch's trial had ended. The verdict, conditional survival, but the air didn't lighten when they left the vale. In fact, the shadows followed. That night, while Kale slept in Aria's arms beside the campfire, a wind swept through the trees, hot, fetid, wrong. Renna jerked upright. "Do you smell that?" Before anyone could answer, a figure stepped out of the smoke. He wore a shredded alpha cloak, blood dried at the collar. His face was half burned, half beautiful. Aria staggered to her feet, holding Kale protectively. "You're dead," she breathed. Kale smirked. "And yet, here I am." Thorne moved between them, eyes glowing. "You don't belong here. I always belonged with my son." Aria's heart dropped. Kale stirred in her arms. Kale's eyes locked onto him. "I named him before you, marked her before you, and now I've come for what's mine." Thorne snarled, claws unsheathing. "Try." But Kale didn't lunge. He vanished, disappearing into mist, his laughter curling around them like a promise. "I'll come when the moon is full." The full moon rose like a threat, as promised. Kale returned, this time in dream and flesh. He invaded Aria's mind first, walking through her memories, twisting them. "You begged me," his voice echoed inside her skull. "And now you carry my legacy," she screamed, awake, drenched in sweat. Thorne held her. "He's breaking the veil. Ghosts don't do that." "He's not just a ghost," Nera said. "He's a curse given shape." That night, he came again in the clearing outside camp, where Kale had been hidden in protective wards. Kale appeared fully glowing with spirit magic. He reached for the boy. Aria stepped between them. "Touch him," she said, "and I will unmake you." "You can't fight a dead man," he mocked. "I'm not fighting a dead man," she hissed. "I'm fighting a coward." Then she struck. Her wolf didn't shift, but her power ignited. Gold flared from her skin. The earth cracked and once feared, now reduced to a shadow screamed. She didn't stop until he burned away, smoke curling from the grass. When it was done, Aria turned to Thorne. "You don't have to protect me anymore." He stared at her, eyes unreadable. "I know," he said, "but I still want to." Thorne had always dreamed in darkness, but this time the dream burned. He stood in Duskfall's ruins. The halls bled shadow. The stone beneath him cracked, and at the heart of it CAEL 17. Eyes gold, claws red. "Why?" Thorne asked. CAEL. Smiled. "You feared me. You hid it well. But I always knew." Thorne raised his sword. Kale didn't flinch. "Is this what you want, Father?" He asked calm, "To try and kill what you raised." "I want to save what's left of you. There's nothing left. You raised a prophecy." He lunged. Thorne's chest split open. He dropped to his knees, blood flooding the ruins, and as he fell, Kale whispered, "You were never enough." Thorne woke with a gasp, fists clenched, heart racing. Aria stirred beside him. What is it? Nothing, he lied. But even hours later, his hands still trembled, because for the first time since he was named Alpha, Thorne was afraid. The moon reached its apex, and Cale, barely months old, howled. The sound shattered glass, made wolves drop to their knees. Aria ran to his cradle. He was glowing, bones cracking, skin reshaping. No, Nera breathed. It's too soon, but the shift wasn't forced. It was chosen. Cale's small body pulsed, then changed, not into a cub, into a silver-furred pup, eyes burning like suns, with shadow etched beneath his paws. Renna gasped, "He's beautiful." "No," Thorne whispered, "he's terrifying." Cale padded toward Aria, tail down, eyes wide. She knelt. He nuzzled her hand. Her heart cracked open. "He chose me," she whispered. "He's not lost." But when Thorne stepped forward, Cale froze, growled. Only once, but it echoed with power. The line had been drawn. Thorne stepped back, and in his chest, the nightmare whispered again. "You were never enough." The witches returned. 3 of them, silent, drenched in mist. Nera bowed low. "Why have you come again?" "Because the child has shifted." Thorne stood before them. "You said if he lived, he'd kill me." "We were wrong," one witch rasped. Aria's breath caught. "What? There are 2 futures now," another intoned. "The child becomes death, or the savior of the werewolf race." Silence. Thorne's voice dropped. "What changed?" "You did." They turned to Aria. "You made him feel, and now fate splits. One path, war, flames, Thorne dead. Cale, a weapon. The other, peace, unity. Cale reborn as a bridge between wolves and magic. But you must choose soon." The last witch said, when Aria asked, before his first birthday. Then they vanished, leaving behind a single carved rune: mother, mate, maker of fate. Aria traced it with shaking fingers. Thorne stepped beside her, his shadow long and cold. "Then we have work to do." Duskfall felt like it was holding its breath. Tensions hung like fog, choking every corridor. Every look. Cale's shift had changed more than just prophesied, had split the pack. Some wolves treated Aria and Thorne with reverence. Others flinched when the baby cued. Even Bram, usually loud, had grown quiet, but his silence crackled with judgment. "Half the pack thinks we're raising a god," Renna said, as she and Thorne stood atop the watchtower, "and the other half thinks we're raising a weapon." He replied, voice flat. She studied him. "Which do you think he is?" Thorne didn't answer. Below, Aria sat in the courtyard with Cale. The boy laughed, giggling at the sight of falling leaves, completely unaware of the weight his name now carried. Renna tilted her head. "You've started standing up here, eh? Lot. I'm watching for threats, or running from one." His gaze sharpened. "You're pulling away," she said, "from Aria, from him. I'm protecting them. You're abandoning them." "I'm not." She grabbed his arm. "Then tell me what you're planning." He pulled away and didn't answer. That night, Aria found Thorne in the old armory, sharpening his sword long after midnight. She didn't announce herself. "You think leaving us is protecting us," she said calmly. His hand stilled. "I never said that. You didn't have to. You've been preparing, haven't you? Mapping exit points, locking documents, moving resources to the outer rings." He didn't meet her eyes. "I won't raise Cale in fear," she continued. "Not fear of outsiders, not fear of you. I'm not the one you should fear," Thorne said. Lo, he is. No, she snapped. You fear him, so you keep your distance. But that boy is watching you, Thorne. Every day. Every time you flinch, or avoid holding him, or call him the child instead of his name, he sees it. He finally looked at her. I love him, he said, like it cost him something. Then stay, she said. Fight, be his father. His eyes shuddered. If I stay, he murmured, and he becomes what they all fear, then I'll have to be the one to end him. She stepped forward, placed his sword down. No, she whispered. If you leave, you already have. Nera explained it over the council table, her fingers tracing a burning line through an ancient map. The eclipse arrives in 4 nights, she said. It only happens once every 1,000 years, and this one is a blood eclipse. Perfect, Renna muttered, because this year wasn't ominous enough. Nera continued, serious. It's not just astronomical. During the eclipse, power destabilizes. Curses weaken or deepen. Fate unravels. Bram frowned, meaning. Kale will either be purified, she said, or become what the prophecy warned. Thorne stood silent by the hearth. Which is more likely? Aria asked. We don't know, Nera admitted. So we're just meant to wait, Thorne muttered. Hope that the sky decides to spare him. Not hope, Nera corrected. Prepare. Aria looked at Thorne. Then we prepare as a family. But Thorne wasn't looking at her. He was. Already calculating the odds, and they didn't look good. It was the middle of the night when Aria woke to the silence. Too quiet. No creaking floorboards. No patrols. No wind. She turned toward Thorne's side of the bed empty. Her pulse thundered. She threw the covers off, heart racing. The nursery door was open, but Kale still slept, unharmed. On the edge of the crib was a sealed letter, Aria's name written in Thorne's sharp, exacting hand. She tore it open. Aria, this isn't abandonment. It's survival. You once asked me if I'd die for our son. That was never the question. The real test was whether I'd live, knowing I might have to kill him. I can't be that man. I love him. I love you, which is why I'm removing myself from the prophecy. From the final moment, you can raise him without my shadow over your shoulder. Maybe then he won't become what I see in my dreams. She dropped the letter, then ran. She found him at the northern ridge, horse saddled, weapons strapped. The moon half gone behind him. Don't you dare, she snapped, stepping into the clearing. Thorne turned. You read it. I lived it. She walked straight to him, fury burning off her skin. You think removing yourself fixes anything. You think absence is a cure. I think I'm the problem, he said, voice raw. He flinches when I hold him. I've tried to hide the fear, but I can't. He knows. You don't get to leave because you're scared. I'm not scared of him, he said. You're scared of loving him. Silence, and then he broke. Every time he smiles, Thorne whispered, I see teeth. Every time he giggles, I brace for screaming. Every time he looks at me, I see a vision of my death. Then you love him anyway, Aria said. You love him through the fear. You don't walk away from him. You teach him not to become what you're afraid of. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. This is yours. We are yours. And you're not allowed to choose fate over us. Finally, he dropped his pack and let her hold him. And just above them, the moon flickered red. The air hung thick with anticipation as Aria, Thorne, and Kale approached the sacred pool beneath the ancient moonlit grove. Nera and the witches stood waiting. their eyes veiled by shadow. "Here," Nera said, her voice soft but sharp, "the final chance to break the curse, to rewrite fate." Kale now, a small, silver-furred pup, was cradled in Aria's arms, his golden eyes reflecting the shimmering water. Thorne's jaw tightened. "Are you sure this won't cost us more than we're willing to pay?" Aria met his gaze. "Nothing worth saving ever comes without risk." The witches began chanting, voices rising in a haunting harmony. Cael stirred, golden light pulsing from his small body. Thorne stepped closer, hand reaching to steady Aria's shaking one. "You ready, mate?" he asked quietly. She nodded. For him, I'd face anything. Together, they stepped into the cool water. The ritual beginning. No sooner had the chanting started than the shadows in the grove shifted from the edges. Dark figures emerged, rogues, twisted by hate and fear, their eyes blazing with malice. Bram and Renna leapt forward, weapons drawn. "Not on my watch." Bram snarled. Witches flared their hands with spells, creating barriers. Thorne's protective growl echoed, "Stay behind us." Aria gritted her teeth, holding Kale close as power crackled around them. The battle erupted. Spell clashed with claw. Steel met darkness. But Kale's glow intensified, radiant, pure, a beacon in the storm. The rogues hesitated, faltered. The witches whispered, "He breaks the old magic." The ritual reached its crescendo. Kale stood, fur shimmering like molten silver. He howled a sound filled with hope and power, and the very earth trembled. Light spilled from him, bursting through the shadows. The curse's grip faltered, even the witches gasped. Thorne watched, awe and fear mingling in his heart. Aria whispered, "He's choosing his own fate." The boy, no longer just a child, lifted his head, eyes blazing gold. With a bound, Kale leaped toward the darkness, and where he touched, shadows melted into light. A rogue, fueled by desperation, lunged at Kale with a cursed blade. Thorne threw himself in front. The blade sliced his side. Pain exploded. Blood poured. Thorne fell, breath ragged. Aria screamed, dropping to his side. "Thorne." "No," he smiled weakly, hand gripping hers. "I'm not done yet. Stay with me," she pleaded. "I have to protect them," he whispered. His eyes fluttered closed. As Thorne's life wavered, Kale raised his head again. A burst of pure, unbroken light poured from him, enveloping the grove. The darkness shattered. The witches' chants softened, turning to songs of renewal. Aria held Thorne, tears streaming. He stirred, opening his eyes. "Did we break it?" she asked. Thorne's voice was hoarse but steady. "Together, we always break fate." Together. Kale nuzzled Aria's neck, glowing softly. Outside, the first dawn in 100 years bathed duskfall in gold. A new beginning. The curse was gone. But the mark remained, a glowing sigil on Kale's petched by the witch's final blessing. Nera knelt before Aria and Thorne, voice reverent. He is no longer cursed. He has chosen a future Alpha Seed, a bridge between worlds. Aria cradled Kale, eyes wide. "What does that mean?" "It means he will see threats before they come," Nera said. "Hear the whispers of magic. Lead the pack into an era of peace or war." Thorne's jaw tightened. "Then we raise him right." Aria nodded. Together, the next dawn, the pack gathered. Bram stepped forward, his usual bravado softened. "We doubted," he admitted, "but she fought for him. For us. for duskfall. Renna nodded beside him, and he changed fate itself. Whispers ran through the crowd. Eyes that once judged now gleamed with respect. Thorne addressed them, voice strong and steady. We protect the future together. Aria stood by his side, her hand in his cell, wrapped in her arms. Looked around, finally home. Weeks passed, the weariness faded. Thorne allowed himself quiet moments with Aria, watching Kale grow. One evening, beneath the full moon, Aria rested her head on Thorne's shoulder. "You're not so cold anymore," she teased. He smirked. "Only when I'm around you." She laughed. "We survived fate," she said softly, "because we chose each other." He answered. The night of the ceremony arrived. The pack gathered at the ancient stone circle, flames casting flickering shadows. Stepped forward, raising her hands. "By the power of the moons," she intoned, "and the will of the pack. Aria of Duskfall is named Lunar Light of the Night and Mother of our future." Thorne presented Aria with a silver necklace of crescent moon pendant. She accepted it, eyes shining. The pack howled in unison, echoing into the night sky. Morning light spilled over Dusfeld. Aria sat beneath an oak tree, Kale asleep in her arms. Thorne stood nearby, watching the horizon. He caught her gaze and smiled. "No matter what comes next," he said, voice low, "we face it together." Aria nodded. The pack, the prophecy, the cursed was all behind them. A new era had begun. Their family was whole, and peace finally settled over the land.